Day geckos are an absolutely fantastic species of gecko to keep. Inquisitive, personable, and let's not forget just absolutely stunning with those fluorescent greens and reds that they have as the coloration. However, with all the great things that there are about the giant day gecko, there are definitely a few things I think you guys should know before taking your part on owning the Madagascan giant day gecko. That's exactly what this video is going to be about today, just some tips and tricks on things that you need to know before keeping this amazing species. As always, I'm Dakota, that's a frilled dragon, and you're watching Day Geckos for Dummies. Stick around. Everyone should know before owning a day gecko is going to be the fact that this is definitely more of a looky display type pet than a hands-on one. Whenever we talk about geckos, the first thing that's going to come in your mind is either going to be a leopard gecko or a crested gecko. A gecko that can be very handleable, that has a very chill temperament, doesn't really run around, and all in all isn't a very fast species of gecko. This is not going to be the case with day geckos. They're a pretty fast species of geckos. If one happens to get out of your enclosure while you're upgrading it to a different enclosure, maybe you're trying to get some food out of there or anything else like that, if they manage to get out, it can be it's an experience. I'll say it is an experience trying to wrangle a day gecko back into its own house. However, with that being said, as long as you get a habitualized animal that actually worked with socializing from a quality breeder, you shouldn't have this too much of an issue. Now with my pair of day geckos, they never really run out. I can open the enclosure, change the food, water, mist them, and they're not gonna try to escape as fast, frantically run out and jump out. It's not really the case with them. I'm able to hand feed these guys, give them little chin scratches every now and then if they feel like it, and they're pretty content. Even with the babies I've been producing over here at DBCB Exotic, we've been working with them to get them the same way, where when you're opening that baby enclosure, spraying it down, changing the food, they're not gonna try to run away from you and just scatter all over the place. What we're trying to make is a calm and easygoing gecko. However, that is not the case with every breeder, and more so on the fact that a lot of these guys are actually still being imported, so all these things you're seeing on Morph Market aren't always a captive bred source. This is why it's so important to not only utilize a captive bred source, but research the breeder a little bit, talk to them a little bit. I know these guys come off as a cheap little throwaway gecko going somewhere around the price of $75 to $120 for a captive bred source, but if you really do want to experience the full just awesomeness that is the day gecko, make sure you get a nice quality one. Over here with our day geckos, I believe we've only had one escape ever happen, and that was due to me just not closing the door. I might have got caught on something, I don't really know what happened, but I walk in one day and there's some day geckos on the wall. They're not where they're supposed to be. However, the fact that this animal's already socialized as a baby and I've continuously worked with it, it wasn't that hard to getting him down. We used a little paper towel roll to kosher them in. They ran up onto my arm and then I closely guided them back into the enclosure. No running around, no grabbing, nothing like that, and that's just what happens when you get a quality sourced animal. Next thing I think you guys should know before getting your day gecko is going to be the size that the animal gets when it's an adult. If the name wasn't enough of a hint, Madagascan giant day gecko, these guys get a pretty respectable size. Going anywhere from around that 9 to 11 inch area, these get to be a pretty big animal. However, it does seem when we start getting into the tropical side of reptiles, people always think of smaller species, that these kind of geckos stay small. We're talking about morning geckos, yellow-headed geckos, peacock day geckos, electric blues, anything like that, only getting to around an inch to a couple of inches in length. So it's understandable that people would think that when they get their little baby day gecko that it wouldn't get that much bigger. That is not the case. These guys get it to a pretty respectable size, and not only that, they are an active gecko. This isn't going to be like your standard crested gecko, which just doesn't seem to move around that much. They kind of pick their favorite hide and then they just say, okay, this is my favorite hide now. Wow, that got bright for some reason. These guys like to move around. They like to explore. I'm constantly finding themselves in different areas throughout the day when I'm watching them. And so with that being said, that you're gonna need a pretty spacious enclosure. This isn't gonna be something that you can throw into a 12 by 12 by 18 through its whole life and call it a day. Now the minimum size for a day gecko is going to be somewhere around that 20 to 29 gallon or the equivalent, the 18 by 18 by 24 Exoterras. However, bigger is always better with these guys. I definitely know that they will appreciate the extra room that you provide for them. To summarize this whole part, yes, it will be a small gecko when you get it. However, unlike most of the day geckos and little baby geckos that you get, they're gonna get to a pretty substantial size and something that's gonna need a little bit more of an adequate enclosure than your other geckos. Moving on, let's get into what seems to be the biggest con of these guys. The thing that makes a lot of people hesitant on pulling the trigger on getting these things, and that's gonna be the fact that they have a very unique defense mechanism. We all know about drop tails. Geckos drop their tails. Crested geckos, you'll find them. There's even a whole word. They call them frog butts or froggy butts. Why they decided to call them that, I'm not too sure, but everyone went with it, and now that's just what it is. However, unlike the crested gecko that only has the ability to drop the entirety of its tail in order to retreat, day geckos take that, well, 2 steps further. Number 1, the day gecko can not only drop its tail, but it can drop certain portions of the tail. If you have the end of the tail, it's not going to actually drop the full tail, just a joint. It's almost like there's little micro joints in that that are able to push off, so it can go at the quarter mark, at the halfway mark, or even the full tail whatsoever. It's a pretty cool thing. If it wasn't cool enough for you, these guys take it 1 step further. Not only can day geckos drop their tail, but they can also drop the individual scales to get away from predators. So that means, well, yeah, usually when an animal gets away, you don't want to focus on the tail because that's the thing that's going to drop. Pretty much the entire gecko can drop. It can drop its skin off. If you're holding it right here, it can fold those scales and then get away. And I can understand why that is scary to some people. Unlike the crested gecko, day geckos do have the ability to regen both the scales and the tail. However, it doesn't seem to look exactly the way that it used to be. It's going to be a little bit more duller, some a little bit uglier, some might say, but they are able to regen it. It's not like you get 1 shot, and if you mess up too many times, all of a sudden you're going to have a scaleless day gecko. That, I want to reassure people that is not the case. Personally, over here in our time of owning day geckos, I have not had a case of an animal dropping its scales. I believe the only drop tail I've had was the day like 2 or 3 when I moved them into a little bit of a bigger enclosure, and they did drop part of their tail. It wasn't a big deal. It regrew, like I say, they do regrow, and you just kind of keep an eye on it, but other than that, not too big of a thing. I fully believe every animal has a con about it, and when you think about it on paper, an animal being able to drop its skin in order to get away with you if you try to manhandle it, it could be a turnoff. I understand that. However, I want to say, as long as you are habitualizing and socializing that animal and getting it comfortable with you, making sure that it is in its proper caging, plenty of secure hiding spots, places that it can retreat to, and as long as that it knows it has those places to retreat to, you shouldn't worry too much about the dropping scales and dropping tail. Not only is, again, not going to be too much of a detrimental deal just because of the fact that, of course, they do regrow those parts. However, as long as an animal feels comfortable and knows it has a place to run away into, you should be okay. As we stated before, it is why I do believe these guys are a little bit more of a display animal. They are absolutely beautiful. It is amazing. One of the highlights of my days being able to walk in and check these guys out and just look at them, watch them doing stuff, hunting for food, eating, running around. It's all just incredible. But this isn't going to be an animal that you're going to be able to go out, grab all the time, handle, have them rest on your shoulder, anything like that, because there are those detriments that could take place if you're not careful. This next thing is going to be more about the user and what they need to be providing more than a con of the actual animal, and that is going to be the fact that day geckos need UVB. Geckos absolutely love the UVB. They go crazy for it. 90% of the time, mine are basking on there, soaking in that UVB, staying close to the UVB. They absolutely love it. And not only do they love it, it's not an enjoyable thing for them, it is required for them. Of course, UVB is breaking down and synthesizing the D3 vitamins and minerals that we are giving them, of course, with the calcium supplementation that we provide with the feeders, but it's also a good thing for you as well. Let me explain. As we talked about a little bit earlier, day geckos are beautiful. They're absolutely fantastic. Fluorescent green, red little stripes to spots. It's so cool. That color can be exasperated, somewhere around there. You guys know what I'm saying. It can get better and bigger if you provide UVB. That is right, providing the proper lighting of UVB is gonna shine the animal, make it even more beautiful and gorgeous than it already is. Now you wanna take the beautiful gecko. This is a display pet, right? You wanna display it in all its glory. UVB is not only beneficial for the animal, a requirement in my opinion, it is also gonna make the animal look even brighter than it already is, which when we're talking about display animals, is just a pro. Today, UVB is just a must. It's needed to break down the synthesize for the D3 and all that other scientific jargon. It makes the animal look better, so it's cooler for you. It's a win-win. Go out, they're like 60, 70 bucks every half year, and you're good to go. I really don't understand why more people don't utilize UVB for their animals. I mean, you got this amazing gecko, you paid the, $100 for it, you're not gonna shell out an extra like 50% of what you paid for the animal in order to give it what it needs? I mean, come on, it's an easy game, just get some UVB. At the end of the day, I have nothing but great things to say about day geckos. I think they're absolutely spectacular. Well, in my short term of owning these guys starting back in late 2021, I think they're absolutely fantastic. They're quickly becoming one of my favorite things when I walk into the reptile room. They're pretty much my go-to when I first enter is, hey, let's go look what the day geckos are doing. They're so cool. The inquisitive nature of the day gecko, the fact that it just loves to watch you. It literally looks at you, not in a fearful, defensive way like some geckos where it's watching you to make sure, you know, it's trying to run away, make sure its spot's clear if you get any closer. But no, it watches you with almost this like curiosity standpoint, like it's wondering what you're doing. Now I know it's probably not wondering what I'm really doing, but it looks that way. I feel like it just makes a more enjoyable experience with the reptile room. And again, they're not taking up that much space, 18 by 18 by 24, throw in some UVB, and you just get this fun thing to watch, to look at, to interact with, not on a handleable level, of course, but on a level of just watching it eat, being able to visualize it, look at it. This really nice enclosure, potentially doing a planted bioactive, watching it resting on these broad leaves. All of those things are just so fantastic. I really don't understand why the day geckos are not as popular as they really should be. They seem to be, again, one of those cheap little throwaway geckos. And over here at DBCB Exotics, we are ready to change that. My mind has been completely changed about the day gecko, and now it is my sole job to change the minds of all those other people that have this thing as this $20 pet store gecko. They're definitely way more than that, and we are going to work hard over here making sure that everyone knows what an amazing species this truly is. Folks, that's the video for today. Let me know in the comment section, did you guys know all these things about day geckos? Maybe you didn't know anything about day geckos. Maybe you're one of the day gecko experts and I missed some stuff. Drop me a comment down right there below, and be sure to press that like button for me also while you're down there. It helps me and it doesn't do anything to you. It's just, you know, 3 seconds of your time, but it really helps your boy out. I'd appreciate it. And if you guys are interested in any of the day geckos I'm going to be listing for sale, which they are going on the market very soon, make sure to go over to my Morph Market page down there in the description below, or check us out over on Patreon, where you get the first come, first serve on all of the babies I produce before I show them to anyone in the public. As always, guys, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to follow us over here at DBCB Exotics. We will see you next time, but until then, goodbye.